Hey, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us here on the Transportation and Logistics podcast, brought to you by our sponsors, Atlanta Dispatch and Humblebee Enterprises. Very excited, very excited to have this guest on stage tonight. A phenomenal woman who has taken supply chain by storm. But just before we get started, I did want to give a shout out to everybody that went to the Home Delivery Link conference that started today. It is going down in Philadelphia, PA, today and tomorrow. So if you happen to be in the area, go ahead, man. It is a free event. You can pay for it, but they also have the free side of things too. You'll get access to, I think, almost everything. At least that's what one of my carriers told me, who is also there on site. And speaking of which, just shout out to Josh, Amir, JC. Go ahead and grab all that business. I'm very proud of you guys. And if you see folks like Freightvana, Shipping, Pandian, go ahead and introduce yourself, and make those relationships so that you can scale your business. And also, I'm publishing a book soon. I sent that bad boy off to be edited, and it's going to be about the fundamentals of dispatching. This podcast, this platform was started with me transitioning from being in a corporate America in a dispatch position to seeing how I can do it as an entrepreneur. And over the course of the last couple of years, I picked up some tips, some tricks, and I teach people all the time. So this right here is a little bit more official. So be on the lookout for that bad boy. And without further ado, Samantha Jones, how are you doing today, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm extremely blessed. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining me here. Samantha, for the people who might not have ever met you before, can you please give us a little bit of a background of who you are and what you got going on?
Yeah, most definitely. I appreciate the introduction. I always feel so undeserving when people compliment me in introductions. So I hope I can live up to the expectations that you set here. I have not been in the industry very long. It's about 4 years now, which pales in comparison to a lot of people in our industry. So I always put that out there. But I started in the industry at basically an entry level position as a management trainee with us, which is the parent company of ABF Freight, Panther Premium Logistics, for anybody who's not too familiar. And I actually started in dock operations, training there, did that for 6 months in an LTL environment, and then was like, you know what, operations, and I'm a 5 month old, wasn't quite conducive. So I moved into sales, and thankfully they were willing to let me do that. And so I worked outside sales pre COVID when it was like walking freight docks, getting yelled at by people, the gatekeepers, what we call them. But I did outside sales, is kind of how I cut my teeth in the sales side of the industry, and did that for about a year and a half. And then I moved up to director of enterprise sales, which I enjoyed tremendously. And I got to work with Fortune 500 shippers and took on more of a consultative approach across all modes of transportation, not just LTL, truckload, LTL, managed logistics, intermodal, drayage, international, and just working with them to help them optimize their supply chains. And at the same time, simultaneously, I was getting into the world of LinkedIn and starting to build a personal brand and starting to really ask a lot more questions to understand. I would kind of say I'm like a wannabe economics person. So I study global, not really, I say study. I stay as up to date as possible on global and domestic markets and how those impact the freight markets here. And so I started working on that and just kind of started sharing my journey on LinkedIn. And Rocket Shipping found me, and I wasn't really looking, but I grew a relationship with Gabe, and I decided to make that jump about a month ago. And I'm now the vice president of revenue at Rocket Shipping.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, man. Look, so this conversation, it's kind of a long time coming. You and I, we first spoke when you were in your former role, but now the fact that you have this autonomy to speak and just share, and the fact that you've been building a personal brand in the industry, I'm very happy to have you here now. Look, how did you get into supply chain though? I know that you said you started, working those docks, which is kind of cool. As a dispatcher, I was obviously handling the trucks and dispatching them, but then I got an opportunity to go into the warehouse as well. I loved it. Everything you
Hmm.
see it's all full circle. Supply chain, everything is related to itself. So how did you first off, how did you get into logistics in supply chain? But how did you enjoy that doc experience?
Well, I'm gonna age myself, which I try not to do because I'm actually younger than I like people to sometimes know. But I just went into this right out of college, totally unintentionally. I it was a God thing. I'll believe that till the day I die. I found myself pregnant in my junior year of college and was basically desperate to find a job that was going to be more like a career that could provide for my child. I knew I had, 7 months until came into this world, and so I found ArcBest at um, it was actually an on-campus career fair, and they were the first person to basically be like, "Yeah, sign the dotted line, and when you graduate, you have a job." So it allowed me to just focus on finishing my education, which was really important, um, and having my son. And then I started work when he was about 5 months old, on the dock, and I enjoyed it. I actually majored in operations management, so it was very much a fit for what I thought I might want to do. And I always said, I don't want to be in sales. Like, that sounds horrible. Sales is the
Mhm.
worst. And so then, really, it was just like realizing that, working 10-hour days with an hour commute each way, 5 days a week, just basically putting in 12 hours a day, I felt like I was not really able to be a parent. And as a single parent, that's really hard too. So I made the
Right.
choice to just switch into sales. And I would have never guessed that that's like what I was meant to do. Like, I just loved it.
That was your
So
jam.
yeah, and not that I didn't love operations, but I will say that I could not imagine in the LTL environment specifically, I couldn't even imagine trying to sell it had I not worked it for 6 months because it is not like truckload. It is so complex and there's so much more that goes into it, that being able to, like, understand the intricacies of it just made selling it 10 times easier.
Right, right. So you're basically saying the fact that you had hands-on experience working the dock, that it kind of increased your knowledge base and the way that you were able to connect everything when you were in sales.
1000%.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
man, I love to hear that, and that's what I tell people about supply chain. I love the fact that I went to Georgia State. I made an amazing network. I love it. But I also found out that in logistics and supply chain, you don't necessarily need that degree in order to succeed in this industry. You really just got to want to put two and two together because it's all interrelated. So you can start, as the forklift driver, or you can start, sweeping the warehouse. I mean, you're going to be able to grow in the industry if you want to. So I love that about your background, and you know, you are now the vice president of revenue with Rocket Shipping. What does Rocket Shipping specialize in? Like, what do you guys do?
Good question. So, Rocket Shipping built their niche as they started in e-commerce business, and obviously that was exploding right around the same time that Rocket Shipping came into the scene, which was pretty much the start of the pandemic. And so, specializing in LTL management, like truly full management of a company's shipping and logistics and supply chain. So they initially started just the way the cards fell. They had a large book of business built around e-commerce, built a lot of integrations with Shopify, NetSuite, a lot of really awesome things, and we still do all of those today. We're incredible at them, and I love that. And we are growing now a lot more on the LTL side. In It doesn't have to be e-commerce. We have an amazing technology solution, just paired with outsourced management of your freight, carrier management, RFP management. So we do all of that for a company, and that could be, I worked with companies at my former role who had $10 million of LTL. They're a Fortune 500 company and they outsource that management. Rocket Shipping is the person that they want to be partnered with. I can say that with certainty. Like, I've seen what other people offer. I've seen what Rocket Shipping offers. So that's a great direction that we're moving there, is expanding that into, just basically a broader market, getting some bigger players. But what's really exciting is that we are really saying, 100%, we are all in, we are committing to growing our truckload service offering. So that's a big part of what my focus is right now. That'll be, it's always a service that they have offered, but it's more, hey, we've been supplemental truckload when our customers need it. Full, pulling out all the stops. We're going all in on truckload brokerage, and we are going to be building Rocket Logistics, which will be our truckload brokerage offering. And I'm so excited because I'm literally get to be a part of that from, ground zero. Like, we are doing this from scratch, from ground zero, and I'm very excited to see where that goes.
Nice, nice. Well, that sounds amazing. Well, look, for the folks who might be listening to this podcast and, maybe they've heard of a 53-foot dry van and they know maybe domestic truckload. What is LTL? How is LTL different? Like, what does that mean to the mom and pop shop that just has one truck and it's a 53 footer? Is that for them or is this something different?
Yeah. So, honestly, most companies, even the big truckload players, they all have LTL spends. It's just two very different modes of transportation. So LTL, quite simply, just stands for less than truckload. It's not enough freight to be a truckload. It's probably not even enough freight to be a partial, or what you would call a volume load on the LTL side. So it's a one pallet, two pallet, three pallet order. Or maybe you're filling a 53-foot truck every day, but those shipments are going to 50 different places. And so you can't have a 50 stop truckload. LTL networks are literally designed with like a hub and spoke model that allow them to be the distribution channels for that freight and to go out. So there's a lot more touches, a lot more goes into the management of one shipment than, the management of one truckload shipment. And it's definitely different. It's unique, and I find them both fun, both challenging. Um, I enjoy the challenge that LTL provides because it usually is a more in-depth process when you're working through that management with a customer. But my passion has always been truckload, so
Right.
I was really big on that with working with my customers when I was working on the enterprise level accounts at ArcBest. And um, so yeah, hopefully that's a good explanation of the difference.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Now, look, I got into this industry by dispatching box trucks. Like, do you guys ever partner specifically with box trucks on those LTL shipments, or is this just a matter of we're going to be combining multiple LTLs onto a 53 footer? Like, what do you like? How are you guys approaching that?
Yeah, so in growing our truckload brokerage offering, we're not really attempting to like try to reinvent any type of LTL management. We're going to be doing the same thing. Essentially, we're focused on true truckload business. What can
Okay.
fill the majority of a 53-foot trailer. So we're not going to intermingle our two service offerings very much. It's always nice when you can quote a partial load instead of, if somebody has 8 pallets for an LTL, a single shipment. It's nice if you can find those carriers who want to build out partials and have some multi-stop truckload business. So that's always an option. And then as far as box trucks goes, I'm familiar with that as well because I sold Panther Premium Logistics, which we
Oh,
owned.
wow.
Hundreds of box trucks and sprinter vans and cargo vans that we used when I was with ArcBest. And so typically, like, nobody wants to pay the price of a dedicated truck for a standard LTL. So short answer is no. LTL is meant to, it's going to take 4 days to deliver your one pallet to the next touching state. It moves slower and it's going to cost you $300 to move that pallet. But if you have, 50 pallets on a 53 foot, or we actually don't pull 53 footers over the road. That's why you see the pup sets, the 228 set trailers that carriers pull.
Right.
There's freight in there moving that's just going to the next distribution center to be broken out to the end of the line terminals, and they'll make those deliveries. So no, we're definitely keeping it separate. When we do LTL management, we're working directly with the LTL carriers themselves, because I think people just need to think of LTL kind of like it's like the railroads. Like nobody's going to come into the LTL industry in my opinion anytime soon because the amount of capital and like assets you have to stand up that many terminals and that many trucks and tractors and people to operate a network is just at this point I don't know that it'd be possible to do so profitably unless you just had like an ungodly amount of money that you wanted to throw into it. So the carriers run the name of, they're they own that, they own the game in the LTL space, and we get to utilize them.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay. All right. Well, now you definitely broke that down. I understand LTO and just that market a lot better. Let me ask you this. Have you always been a numbers person? You are the vice president of revenue, but do you feel like you've always been a numbers girl?
Um, all right, let's not tell my CEO this. No, um, I have a minor in statistics from college, and I remember I actually put it on my resume when I first got hired at ArcBest, and our my regional vice president who interviewed me at the time for the job, he's now the president of ABF Freight. He's extremely brilliant man, and he actually looked at that and he's like, "Oh, so do you like you do statistics? Like, do you like Excel and numbers and blah blah blah?" And I was like, please don't ask me another detailed question about it because no, I when it comes to that type of stuff, no. I would say my love is more in like, of course, numbers as far as like making sure we're running a profitable business. Yes, absolutely. Um, but more so, my passion I would say is on the economics side. Like, I understand that we are looking at a much different landscape in 2023 than what we've experienced in 2021 and 2022. So I think it's more like understanding what we're going into, understanding how the markets around us are directly affecting, say, the truckload van market. What are the contract rates versus spot rates doing? How are they reactionary to consumer spending, to different various factors, import levels, things like that. Understanding how we can try to best educate ourselves about the immediate conditions and what we, it's always your best guess, but what is your best guess for the coming months? And so that's kind of more what we're focused on at Rocket Shipping is making sure that we're strategically positioning ourselves, knowing what we're going to be up against in the, coming months and building a business that is truly successful and profitable and able to withstand the cyclical nature of the industry that we're in. That's how it is. It's always cyclical.
Right, right. I agree. I haven't been in logistics 30 years, but I have heard about, the cyclical nature of things and, just uh, we know that the market has been softening a bit. Weekly, the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse, we partner with FreightWaves Sonar Team. And we basically give them game in the beginning of the week to say, hey, you should position your trucks here. This is where you're going to be able to get the most. You're going to be able to take advantage of the market conditions in these areas. And we've been consistently seeing that the spot market has been softening over the past few months. I know that you are a student of the game, domestic and global. Any particular reason, or do you have any insights as to why, the market has been softening? And I know that it's
Yeah.
a guess in going forward. Well, what about in the past? And you can make your guess or assessment of the
No,
future.
I mean, there's 1000% an explanation for that. Like, there doesn't need to
Okay.
be like guesswork in why I'm sorry, spot rates have done what they've done. Um, so when we were, let's say, pretty much after we came out of that, what is actually considered a recession, when everything just like went to zero in 2020, when we went into those first lockdowns. So we
Hmm.
came out of that, and what did we see? I mean, people were staying home, people were getting stimulus, and people were spending money. So it was just consumer driven demand for goods that have to be imported and goods that have to be moved on a truck. And so we saw that. We saw, a lot of other factors actually. Manufacturing has been steadily up. New home starts were up. Basically, the economy just came back with a boom. And so there was a lot of freight volumes moving. And pretty much what happened is everybody said, forget this routing guide, forget my RFP. gone to crap and now I can't stick with anything. And we saw a lot of shippers just riding out the spot markets to cover their freight. I mean, we're talking like you had Fortune 500 companies who ship say 200, 300 loads a day with 20+% of their volume consistently in spot every day.
Mhm.
So much business in spot. So we all know what happened is the carrier saw that the average, rate per mile might be three something in spot, and I'm still contracted with all my trucks tied up at $2, something cents a mile here. And so you started seeing that, like, how much can I reject tenders, right? And it was that struggle between, okay, shipper, you're either going to pay me more money or I'm going to go play in the spot market where I can make more money. And that happened, and it had to happen because you got to know what you're worth, and there's a way to balance that. But that's what happened. So you had a lot of volume in the spot market, and that's how people were covering stuff. So the rates were high because there was more demand being people asking for their goods to be moved than their supply. And I'm going to say supply as in trucks in this instance in the spot market space. And that when there's an imbalance in those, there's always somebody has the upper hand, and in this case the carriers did, and their rates were high. So what happened in 2022 is we're kind of like, we had a mostly normal 21. We got through the Delta variant, and then I don't even remember what the last one was called. We get through all of this,
Right.
and we're feeling pretty good, and people went ahead and said, okay, we're going to place our bets and we're going to go back out. And I mean, I was working enterprise Fortune 500 supply chains. We had so many RFPs at our company that we were fielding at that end of year, beginning of year 2022, because people felt confident that they were going to be able to get carriers to commit and lock rates, and things were going to be steady. And they were dead on. And that's what happened. Now, I will say carriers committed at record high. I mean, even Freightways has put this out there like this week. The contract rates for line haul are high. Um,
Yeah, the highest they've ever
Highest
been.
they've ever been. It's great, right? So carriers locked those in 22, and then there was such dramatic shift of shippers business back to contract rates from spot that all of a sudden you just had the volume was just like sucked out of spot. So now the supply and demand, equilibrium there in spot was flipped, and there was more carriers um, per se than there are shippers that loads are hitting spot. I mean, I would have been. That's a hard market for owner operators dependent on spot, and that's what fuel rates went up, and you have those. We should have absolutely expected spot rates to start dropping from the time, and it's exactly from the time that those RFP awards went live from the beginning of the year. And so I have never once been shocked at the outcome of the rates in the spot market. The important thing so far is contract rates have held, and that carriers honored those commitments, shippers honored those commitments. I saw tender rejection rates within Fortune 500 companies at 98%, or I'm sorry, tender acceptance rates at 98% and higher, meaning there's like one load a day hitting a spot board for a Fortune
Right.
500 shipper,
No, I
because
hear you.
carriers were making good moves, and why would you reject that?
No, agreed, agreed, agreed. And look, and now we're here. Now is, we're almost in September. So shout out to my mother. Her birthday's tomorrow.
That's awesome.
And, and, now we do have lower rates. We do have a lot of new entrants. So motor carriers who got into the industry after the boom, after the golden age of trucking started, where those rates were high and the cost to acquire some of those vehicles were also high. So they
Mm-hmm.
have, higher cost of business, higher costs of operations. And, does that affect you now? The fact that the rates have gone lower, so you have to bid a little bit lower to win the business, but then you have to kind of cater to your dependable carrier base who need higher rates so that they can pay their bills. Is that have you noticed any of that so far?
Oh yeah. So I mean, I'm gonna try to not talk too much on this, because I have so many thoughts. What's happening right now, for anybody who doesn't know, is that brokers are participating in shipper RFPs, which scale get contract freight as well, right? They go directly to shippers and participate in these. The brokers are bidding rate that they will only be able to cover in a true spot market situation. And they're even like planning for the deterioration of the spot rates. So three makers were bidding to win contracted awards at rates that were like 10% below spot market low, knowing that the go live would
Mm.
happen in 3 more months. They'd have 3 months till go live, and then they were cross right, and they were going to be able to cover that. What that does for the shipper, and I've had conversations with shippers about this, is you don't actually have a carrier or a broker partner who's planning to source a reliable carrier partner for you. You have a broker who's going to put your stuff out on a load board at dirt cheap and scrape the bottom of the barrel to try to get it covered every time. So if I was a shipper, it's hard to refuse those attractive rates. I get it, especially after you paid so much. But you have to make sure, if you're going to go with a broker that's bidding really aggressively, you better have a really good relationship with that broker so that you know that they're going to move mountains if they have to make sure that your stuff is covered and taken care of. But that's what people are doing. So there are brokers out there that are just basically bidding spot rates on contract awards. And that stinks, because if they get that, that's a contract award that could have gone to a broker who had a good carrier source at a fair rate. That's an award that could have gone to an asset carrier who could have done it direct with their fleet. So that's what's
Man.
going to happen in 2022. Here at the end of the year, we're coming up on a busy RFP season again, and the shippers are ready to save money. They locked in high rates in 22. They were within their rights to start asking their carriers to come down if they wanted to try to. I'm glad a lot of them didn't. It seems fair that they recognize that fuel is still high, cost of maintenance is still high, parts are still high, driver pay is still elevated. Like, all of these things are valid costs that carriers are facing, and they need to be compensated for all of that, plus what their fair pay should be for the margin on
Right.
those loads.
Right.
So the problem we're going to see now is the brokers coming in with these rates that, of course, a carrier who just really needs to get a load out of that market will take it that day that you post it out to your DAP board at a rate that a carrier who's trying to plan a solid route for their fleet could not accept that at and make money. And that's what we'll be looking at in 23, I think.
Okay. Well, look, there I did have an opportunity to make a decree. I partnered up with OTR Solutions, and I was speaking to the small fleet owners and the dispatchers, the independent dispatch agencies, and I was saying, hey, we understand what's going down. We have to band together to say no to the basement rates. We have to let the fact that our costs are at this amount be known to the industry, so that maybe they won't push all of the small fries out of the out of the game.
Yeah,
A lot of,
absolutely.
a lot of these new entrants, they're going to be pushed out of the market if the rates continue to go in the direction that you just described. So you know
Yep.
what do you have a plan? Like, how do you navigate this? What is a brokerage, especially a budding brokerage who is looking to grow a truckload division from scratch? How do you navigate this?
Well, I have a hashtag that I've used on some of my posts. It's hashtag make no small plans or make no little plans. That's me to a T. Like, I have a lot of ideas I've been working on, and I hope that we really are going to be the brokerage that sets the bar for exactly what you're talking about for the industry standard, because we are going to partner with carriers, and we want true partnerships. So we need good people. We're not going to tolerate any carriers who don't have anything but respect back, and we can respect them. But our plan is to help. We're going to provide resources. I want our carriers. I had this like mantra when I was in sales that helped me start doing my education, like just posts and stuff on LinkedIn. An educated customer is my best customer. When you don't have to combat ignorance or just combat simply a pure lack of knowledge and understanding about what you're trying to help them accomplish, it's better, it's easier, you move faster, and both sides come out for the better. So it's the same thing. That's what we're going to be doing in our carrier partnerships. We are going to help carriers find the resources they need. Maybe you're just an owner operator, maybe you're a small fleet, maybe you're starting out and you have some assets. We're going to help those carriers find resources and support them to understand, what are your operating costs? What is your break even? What do you need to make per mile to make sure that you're profitable and you're running a successful business? Because at the end of the day, I need you and you need, if you need me, we both need to be in business in 6 months. So we're going to be providing, resources and guides for our carriers. And I want partnerships with carriers where we can say, what are you trying to accomplish? All right. Where's your network? Where do your drivers want to be? Help us. We're going to build our network around you. We can find the shippers. We're going to be good sellers, right? And we're going to talk to people who want to do good business with good people. But we're going to design like a network truly focused on our carriers. And as a broker, that's what gives you your competitive advantage, because we're nothing without our carriers and the trucks that they provide. So we focus on the carrier. They're going to be able to help give us the capacity that we need to take back and sell into that. And we're going to focus on the partnership with the shipper. And we're going to make sure that we're going to have fair paying freight for our carriers, that we're taking a fair rate, and that all three parties involved are going to be happy. And that's a lot easier said than done, but we mean it. We're committed to making sure that that's how we're going to grow. And it just starts with focusing on your carriers.
I love that. I definitely do. You know, I was about to connect this in a way. I completely forgot. I'm not gonna lie,
It's like, it
but
sounded so good in my head for
right.
you.
All right. So let's go back to this. This sounds like a chicken and egg type of scenario to me because oh, here's go. This is what I was going to say. I agree with you 100% as far as a broker, is only as good as their carrier pool, their dependable carrier pool. You can
Yeah.
get all the business you want to, but if you don't have the dependable carriers to deliver it, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do to that customer, to that shipper. So, what do so this is the chicken and the egg. When
Yep.
you're scaling, which one do you prioritize? You know what I mean? Like, do you focus first on growing your book of business? Do you focus first on growing your dependable carrier base, or do you focus on building the infrastructure and the systems to support the business? Like, where do you focus if you're saying, you know what? I'm trying to scale this bad boy from ground zero. What do you like?
Yep.
Where do you put your attention?
So I would say that maybe if you built a brokerage in 21, your answer could be different, because you could probably, you would have had a better chance finding the freight first and then finding a carrier for it. And shippers were less focused on price, to be
Hmm.
honest. So
Yeah,
shippers are going to be focused on price. And the one thing that always has and always will allow a shipper to go with not necessarily the lowest cost provider is capacity in hand. And so I know that that's going to be really important going into 23. And so when you're growing, and we are really talking ground zero, um, I'll actually plug this for a second. We are forming what we're going to call our carrier advisory board, which is basically, we're going to have, I think we're going to have about 10. We're looking for 10 carriers with some diverse geographical areas. We're kind of looking for a mix of both reefer and dry van carriers and different ranges. Maybe it's 10 trucks, maybe you have 100, maybe you have 200. So we're going to kind of get a good mix there. And what we're basically going to do, number one, we're using our carriers to understand, how do we be a true partner for you guys? Because so we're going to have that. It's going to be in a lot of ways, for payments, for just, who holds relationships, all sorts of things. But it's also going to be around understanding those 10 carriers network needs as we get started. And we're going to sell into that, because I know from experience, if I can pick up the phone and call a shipper in San Antonio and say, hey man, I have 3 trucks, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the area that I need to get to, any of these 3 places. And I know if they ship that, or they might ship that, the conversation is like going to go so much better than if you're like, hey, you have any loads I can quote? Like, so
correct.
so we're going to really focus on at the beginning building our network around where our carriers have the capacity. So because that's twofold. That helps us be a lot more successful in our sales relationships and helping our shippers. And then it also helps our carriers fill the gaps, or maybe not even a gap. Maybe they're like, this is our ideal. We just didn't have it. So we've been doing this. Like, we want to help our carriers figure out what is your ideal and can we find freight? Surely there's freight there. Let's go find it. We'll do that work for you and we'll manage that relationship for you. So that's the plan. And I want to plug in as many carriers on contract business as we can. And if you're going to compete in an RFP in 2023, you better have some capacity in hand or be willing to compete with the brokers who are scraping load boards with
Right.
rates.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And the funny thing is, I, as an independent dispatch agency, I've done that. You said that you want to build around where you have carrier capacity. I built my carriers around where I had dedicated high volume opportunities. So I'm based out of Atlanta. I love Atlanta. I know a lot
Yeah.
of Atlanta carriers. I found a lot of dedicated opportunities, high volume opportunities out of Northeast. So I have a strong carrier base, the people who I actually dispatch for out of the Northeast, out of Michigan, so it's just I like where your mind is going right there, and I think it's gonna do well. It's gonna fare well for you guys.
I
And
would
while
say,
I'm asking, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to make a comment that, I mean, you're a dispatcher, but a good carrier sales rep is a mini dispatcher. That's what they're
Right.
doing. They know the needs of their carriers that they hold relationships with, and they can keep those carriers moving until they say stop or get me home or whatever it is. Like, we, as well, our carrier salespeople are going to make sure that that carrier doesn't have to use another broker to get a load to where they want. We want to be able to fill those, fill all of those gaps or get those lanes for them when they need them.
Yes, ma'am. No, I definitely hear you there. So, folks who are listening, if you are dispatchers, you need to make friends. You need to become pals with the carrier sales reps so that your carriers can be those primary carriers, the folks who they go to first, where they have those opportunities. That's that's just something that I do with every one of my carriers is make them the go-to person, organization when we have consistent opportunities. So yeah. So besides that, um, what are some of the other pillars of building a scalable freight brokerage? I know that it's the carrier pool, dependable, and you already said that you guys are going to be pouring resources into these folks to make sure that they are educated partners. Because an educated customer is the best customer. I love that. That's a quote. I'm going to use it. I love it. So I know you got some resources that you're going to be pumping into these folks. Are there any other pillars within the framework of building a scalable freight brokerage?
Yes. So I think that the last um, 5 years, even maybe or longer, have proven that you can scale a brokerage very quickly if you're not worried about profitability. Um, that's just a fact. You can build a $500 million brokerage in just a matter of a few years if you're not actually worried about how much money of revenue you're generating because you're backed by investments or whatever it is. You somehow have the financial resources at your disposal to do that. So if a company's just scaling for the sake of scaling, definitely attainable. Now, what we're going to do is scale at a pace that makes sense to be able to do so responsibly. I mean, we're truly, Rocket Shipping has been bootstrapped. Gabe is a incredible person, like business person. He has built a successful business without having to take any funding from anyone, no equity money, no anything. And he's been able to do that from growing at a safe, steady pace and making sure that you onboard revenue, you get it comfortable, and then you go grow again. And so we are ready to get pretty aggressive here in the next couple of years. Um, but we have to do it sustainably, especially in the markets that we're going into. So we're going to need to make sure that what we're doing, we're not just going to go out there and buy a bunch of shipper relationships and lose money to do it. This just isn't the market to do that because I don't see an ROI. I can't lose money for 6 months, for a big shipper and then expect that in the second half of 23, if rates have continued to decrease, that they're going to give me a 25% increase on my rates so I can start, making $100. Um, it's just not realistic. And that's not what we want to do. That's not the position I want our company or our people to be in. So we're going to focus on doing it right. And I think sometimes doing it right takes a little bit longer. And Gabe and I are both very impatient people when it comes to wanting to grow. So it'll be hard for us, but we're going to do it. And I think that even by doing it right, we'll be impressed with how quickly we're able to scale this business.
Yes, ma'am. Look, you mentioned something earlier about getting into freight, and then as you were transitioning into one of your newer roles with ArcBest, you found LinkedIn. You began to build your own brand. What I want to ask you: how important are personal brands in today's professional climate?
I lost you for a minute, but I think you're asking about how important is it to have like to be on LinkedIn to have a brand in this industry? Is that
Well,
what you're
well, can you hear me? Because I'll just ask it again.
awesome?
All right. So, basically with you, you've built a personal brand, and, it's around supply chain. It's about you being an enthusiast in supply chain. How important is it for anybody that's in this business world today, society today, to build a personal brand about whatever they have going on?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's invaluable. So, number one, I wouldn't be where I'm at in my career without my personal brand because through investing in myself and, choosing LinkedIn as my avenue to just get my brand out there. Number one, if you're going to have a personal brand, you're kind of like, it forces you to be accountable to yourself number like before anybody else, because if you're going to say, oh, I want to be able to have a personal brand where I talk about this or I educate about this or I'm passionate about this, then you have to go do that and really mean it and really have passion for it. So that's what it did for me. It like focusing on building my personal brand was intentional. And that's okay to say that. I was like, okay, I want to be able to have a presence. I was in sales. I'm on LinkedIn. I want people to be able to say, hey, Sam, I want to talk to you, not me be, trying to knock down doors all the time.
Right.
So it's okay. It's okay to have a selfish motive in it, as long as it's the right type. And so that's what I did. But I I'm so grateful I did it because it really became a true passion of mine. And I do it now because it's fun, because I enjoy it. And then the other thing, it opens opportunities for employment, for advancement. People see that, people know who you are. And the next, my favorite part about it is networking. I have networked with so many people, um, through doing podcasts, through just chatting and LinkedIn messages. I made a post, said anybody can sign up for 30 minutes of my time to meet me for coffee. I sent out 55 invites to people in our industry who want to
Wow.
talk about something for 30 minutes.
Wow.
Um, so I won't be doing that again for a couple months because I'm like booked out. Yeah, I was like, okay, I didn't expect that. But yeah, growing your network, that is so important. And I think that people, like, I've even had people say, well, you talk to him, like, isn't that going to be your competition? I don't care. I will talk to any leader at another truckload that I can understand. We can learn from each other. Like, we should all be doing that. It's kind of unfortunate that we have the mindset that, like, only focus on yourself and everybody's the enemy. Like, I don't have that mindset. I think we learn from each other and we build each other up. And if anybody hasn't noticed, there is plenty of freight to go around. I mean, this is like a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there are very few companies that are over $1 billion in the industry. So there is plenty of love to share. But yeah, that's the branding is huge for advancement, for personal development, and then for growing your network.
Okay, yeah, I love it, and I think to piggyback on the tail end of that, I do think that there has traditionally been a scarcity mindset within our society, within our capitalistic society of it's only enough for a certain amount of people, so I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it's me and not my opponent. Whereas I've I've really been leaning into this collaboration over competition thing. I network nonstop with dispatchers. If I have opportunities that are more better suited for somebody else, I'm passing it or I'm making
Oh
that.
yeah.
And it's about just building a community of collaboration versus thinking that just because they're doing good that means that I'm not doing good, whereas we can both just be doing great out here, and just making friendships while we're all being successful. So I
Yeah.
agree. There is a lot to go around. So
Yeah, I can say confidently, like in my career, I've made at large asset trucking companies. And, I sold into a shipper and they're like, we literally are like not adding any more brokers. We're interested in assets. And I'll be like, oh, well, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm not the right fit for you right now. Let me introduce, so and so in copy, pull them in. And then next thing I know, they're doing $5 million of business with that shipper. And I'm perfectly fine with that because I was not the fit and you're not going to be everybody's fit at the time that you reach out to them. But if you
correct.
can build somebody else up and help them out, well, guess what? That same person turned around a couple months later and got me in the door for $5 million of brokerage business. So it's like there's plenty of that to go around, and you don't need to be doing that with 30 people all the time. But like build your circle, find the people that you believe in what they're offering that's different than what you offer, and you guys can help each other. Build your networks that way.
Yes, ma'am. Well, yes, ma'am. Look, I wanted to go ahead. I know that we're going to be a little bit shorter today, guys. But if there were any questions, I did want you to go ahead and raise your hands, and we'll bring you on stage. You can ask a question. But until somebody raises their hand, I'm going to ask another question. Okay, and it's more to do still with that personal brand. Do you feel like within the industry today, if someone's out here looking to win business as a broker, as a freight brokerage as a whole, that personal brand is, will solidify some of those deals? Do you think that's happening on a regular basis? Uh,
Yes. Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, I do. I think that asking for business, let's I like this like dating analogy. So if somebody in 2022, right, we all are on like multiple social media platforms. So there's no more such thing as a blind date anymore. Like if someone wants to set you up on a date or ask you on a date, like the first thing that person's going to do is go stalk that person on anywhere they can and find out as much as they can to decide if they think it's worth their time. Um, People in business do the same thing now. They go to LinkedIn, they go look you up, and if it's like, so and so is in sales and they haven't posted in a year, or they only post about, look at my company, call me if you need help, you're a salesperson. And they're naturally, I think, averse to that. And so if you can provide content or value or just show that you have passions and you care about something related to what you're trying to talk to that person about, and that's evidence to your personal brand, then like for me, I think I can definitely say I've gotten the ROI. Like people look at me and go, all right, like she might be somebody I want to talk to for 30 minutes to decide if it's worth talking more. And it's easier to knock down doors that way when you have a personal brand that sometimes precedes you. I mean, one time I prospected someone who I didn't even, unbeknownst to me, we had been connected on LinkedIn for like 6 months. That was the fastest sales cycle I've ever closed. We started transacting, $3 million of truckload within like 3 months of me saying, hey, because he felt
oh
like he already
wow.
knew me. And we didn't have to go through the 2 months of trying to get to know each other, trying to see. I think once he was able to just confirm that he was who he thought me to be through the way I carried myself and portrayed myself on social media that he had been familiar with for 6 months, we hit it off. We were able to just business. 100%. Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I love that, and you're right. That is a shortcut. They do feel as though it's only a small amount of time to see if their perception of what they've gotten off of social media is the person in, when they actually speak with you. So, no, I think that's pretty dope. I think that's a great point for people to take, of just the power of leveraging not only LinkedIn, but just your brand as a whole. Just pour into that bad boy. We were fortunate enough to have somebody come on stage to ask a question. Ms. Bryant, are you there?
I am. Good evening. How's everyone?
Bless, bless, bless. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I got a question. We use the term, or you hear the term brand being used, for every industry, right? So I have a trucking company and dispatching slash back office company. And
Hmm.
so when I grow up, I do want to have my own brokerage. I have the name for it already, that's already been established. But when it comes to LinkedIn, I want to get your feedback. Anybody's actually, if you don't mind. So the name of my company is Go Bryant Transport, and then it's Freight Now Logistics is the back office or dispatching side, right? So because the brokerage life has not really started yet, how do you suggest? Because I think it becomes kind of strange, right? To maybe sometimes have a page for something that really doesn't exist. Is it a good idea to actually beat up my current page? Since instead of trying to create something eventually for the brokerage, would it be a good idea to try to build relationships based on the fact that I'm a carrier and I have a dispatching company? Does my question make sense?
Yes, it does. And
Okay.
I appreciate your question. I love because what I would say, uh, one of the main things that I would say is when we're talking about a brand, I think a company brand is always important. What actually truly builds a company brand are the personal brands of the people that work at that company. So I would say
Okay.
that you don't even have to have like a company page that's building this great, like putting this out. In fact, people don't usually gravitate towards company pages. When you think about, I don't know, you mentioned them early, Jory, but Freightvana has done an exceptional job at building a brand. When you think about the why, you don't see Freightvana's LinkedIn page making content. You see 30 of their people with amazing content, just like, taking LinkedIn by storm. And with Steam Logistics, it's never the company page, it's the people. So I think if you're passionate about what you're doing and you can share content on your personal page, talk about what you're doing, everybody's going to clearly see the companies you own, where you work, what you represent, and you are the brand for your company. And your content doesn't even need to be, here's what my company offers. Your content is, here's what I think about, dispatching work. Here's what I think about, how it is to be an asset carrier. Here's what I think about being a broker. And it's you talking about the industry. And that's what people gravitate towards, is like you and that authenticity and that passion, not a company page. So I think the answer is like, you are the answer. You focus on yourself and growing that, and your people, if you have people at your company, growing their brands. And that's what reflects on your company.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, a quick question. Since I do have a page that is set up for my business, at this point, instead of deleting it or whatever, can I work that? You know what I mean? Can I? So, if you are okay, so anybody in the room, and I'm really open to criticism, so I'm not sensitive like that. If anybody has any suggestions, please feel free to give them to me. So, if you would go on LinkedIn right now and you would put in Go Bryant Transport, which is Go hyphen Bryant Transport, you will see Go Bryant Transport slash Freight Now Logistics, right? This is the issue that I'm having. So I have my personal page, which is Tam G Bryant. I think that's my name, or it might be Tam Goshe Bryant. You can look at that too. The personal, well, okay. So I'm a career counselor by trade before I transitioned over into trucking. So because of what I do, and I actually still work a full time job,
Hmm.
I can't really pepper. Um, I didn't really think to pepper my personal page with the trucking stuff, right? Because at a point before the Great Resignation and then the Great Regret system came into play, people were actually calling me for positions that I had applied to. Because I still work a full time job while running a trucking company and dispatching company. My husband's a driver, so that's easy, and then my sister handles the back office stuff for the carriers, right? So I'm
Hmm.
just like, I started the stuff, right? I don't want to take up all y'all time. I'm just trying to figure out if I could better leverage what I have already, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
If you've
Is it
already built a base around that page that's the company page, maybe, I don't know, if you can just change a page from a company to a personal, put your picture on there and operate two separate personal pages, or maybe you just want to keep it as a business page. But it's clearly, as long as the content is you and not like, what a company page usually becomes, which is necessary, by the way, and good, is like marketing material. Marketing or social media, somebody usually is the one like running that page. And Rocket Shipping has one, and our ladies do a phenomenal job with our page. And they will like interact with the employees, interact with other people on LinkedIn. But it's what they post is vastly different than like what I post. In your instance, I would just encourage you maybe to do both. Like maybe 80 personal, 20 marketing, whatever it is. But if that's what you want to feel, you already have a platform, take advantage of it, then maybe that's the
oh,
route I would go.
okay?
Well,
Good.
before you go, Miss Bryant, let me ask this question.
Okay.
Um, Ultimately, do you want to be the brand, the person in front of the camera? And the reason why I asked that is because you did mention the fact that you have reasons why you don't want to just go all out, and say, this is what I'm doing in logistics, people. You want to have. It sounds as though I've heard that you wanted to have a little bit of separation, and for that, I would say it just depends on what your goals are. If
Okay.
there was somebody that didn't want to be in front of the camera, but they wanted the business to kind of be they want it to be mystique, but they want the business to be in front of everything. Well, you just move accordingly that way. But if you do want to be known for somebody that contributes in a meaningful way in supply chain, well, you're just going to have to then, build your own personal brand. But it just depends on you and your comfort. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When to
That
answer
was
your
that's the only critique, or that's the only thing I had to say about it.
Okay, yeah. To answer your question, I do want. I might want to be the brand a little bit, if not a lot of it, when I grow up, right? So it's still up in the air, right? So I got a little bit more growing up to do, or so like right now I'm positioning myself to eventually. So I'm working at a law school, and that's what I do. And right now it's working for me for a few reasons because my husband has been driving since the 1900s. I want to literally get him out of the truck. I want to retire my baby because you know what I'm saying. He's been driving, since the 1900s. But I want to put somebody else in the truck. I want the trucking company to actually self-run right before I make any kind of drastic decisions. And I work for the state of Illinois, which means that I have a few more perks than I would have if I didn't work. So the transition has to be a little bit more strategic. But yeah, once I fully transition out, hey, I'll be the person. Yes, this is me, right? But until then, I'm just trying to figure out how to do it strategically. But I was just trying to. That's why I was trying to figure out if I could leverage what I have right now with Freight Now Logistics and O'Brien Transport because although it's two separate companies, I was not gonna make 3 pages, right? I was like done because that I got 3 Instagram pages. I was all multiple paged out. I'm done. So I was
Right,
just
right,
figure out how to make it work, and then I can actually post as Tamara on both pages. Of course, I was just trying to get my life together. But thank
right.
you. The feedback has been great. I'm gonna go ahead and throw myself back down to the audience. But thank you so much.
Okay, and look, well, I'll just talk to you as you go back to the audience next week. Well, Samantha, let me tell you, I'm so appreciative of you joining us, and I did want to be respectful of your time. We are basically about to close out, so if you wanted to say anything, closing remarks, you definitely can. Miss Bryan, I
Yeah.
am going to get back to you in a second. Please go ahead, Miss Samantha.
Yes, all I would say is LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time. I like this. I've never done a clubhouse thing before, actually, so you're pulling me into this, and it was different. It was really cool. But I'd love for anybody, and Tamara as well. Like, connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Samantha Jones. I'm on there. My profile picture is the same as the one I have up right now, and I'm always happy to network and connect with people. And if you have any questions, just shoot me a message and I'm happy to chat. But by all means, I believe in networking and helping each other. So I'm always happy to connect with people.
Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet. And look, Samantha here, she's a sweetheart. You guys would never have known this, but I was going to have a different topic today, and she so graciously stepped in, very, very, last minute. And I did want to just say I truly appreciate you, everything that she just said about helping, networking, and using her power of influence to put you in a better spot. I will attest to it. So again, I truly appreciate you, Samantha. If you needed to go ahead and hop off, I understand. I did want to go back to Miss Bryant. Next week, the session is going to be it's going to be a plug yourself. Every single quarter, we put on this opportunity for the members of the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse to come on stage and introduce what they got going on and what they're looking to do next, or what would get them to the next level within their operation. So I do think it would be a good idea for you to join us next week. And I do think that there's a lot more that you can be, there's a strategy that you can be implementing right now, knowing that in the long term, your goal is to be a supply chain professional. You have the truck, you have the dispatch company. I think that there's a lot more that we can talk about what you can do now to brand yourself, because a lot of people don't network enough before they're fully out there. So I know that you got more than a few things going on right now, but that would be my only thing that I had to say to that. And so yeah, that's basically it, y'all. For the folks who've been tuning in for a while, we normally partner with Freightways on Monday mornings. The brother who has been our Freightways resource, he got married. He got married on this past Sunday, and he is on his vacation, and I believe he will be out next Monday too. So, I could ask them to give somebody else, but he's really solidified his spot as the person that does it. He puts a lot of time and energy into it. So I think we might just be postponing it again until not this coming Monday, but the Monday after that. Again, I appreciate everybody so much. What's up? What's up, Paris? I see you. What's up, Kenya? Hey, now it was good to see you in person the other day. D, as always. Well, look, outside of that, man, y'all just have a blessed rest of your week. And I thank you for the support. God bless y'all.